Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on your favorite Little Slaw YouTube channel. So, in one of my previous videos on my discussion with one of our subscriber, I got a question from Jeevan Prerna. So, the question was, can you make a video on distributed load testing for 1 million users, and what are the specifications that are required for slave machines and how many machines are required for it? Please make a video on this was the request, and in fact, another subscriber has even confirmed the same. So this is really a good question. I always think in my mind, as I'm unluckily not able to get such opportunity to handle such activity, please make it yes. So today in this video, we are going to see what are the specifications do we need, and at which situations, like what are the situations do we do this testing, and also we will see how to approach this in every possible step. And the second part is, if you really want to see how do I do this in practical way, I can do it, but I can do it only after I reach my 1 million users. I'll definitely do this. I'll definitely remember this video as well, like this part. So once I reach 1 million video, I will make uh, the live video, like how to do this distributed testing, and I will show it to you. But for now, I'm going to explain it to you theoretically, which I will cover the entire part of how to do this. So I believe this video will be definitely useful for you. So please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, share the video with your friends, and like this, if you have any questions, please do comment in the comment section. And just remember, once we are reaching our 1 million users, I will do this for you in practical. I will show you how to do this. So for now, with no further delay, let's go to the video. So firstly, we can approach this. I mean, like basically, testing with 1 million users is typically required for large scale applications, and we are going to achieve this using JMeter, and that is through the master and slave. So I will explain you like what is this master and slave, how does this configuration part work. But for now, we might have come up across a question like, why do I need to test 1 million users? I mean, like, where are the scenarios where I have to do this? So there are like several platforms which where you really need to do this 1 million users testing. Say, for example, like if you are part of a social media platform application, like for example, like a Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or like any other social media platform, where you have to handle millions of simultaneous users interacting with posts, uploading media, and messaging. Even in fact, like there were elections going across India, and people might be available all the time in Facebook or Twitter or Instagram supporting their parties, and they will be like uploading images or memes or any they will be like updating the content, their images of taking putting a vote, casting their vote, and posting the images. So it's always been completely occupied, right? So that is where you would need the 1 million user testing. So because like I said, you need to handle millions of simultaneous users interacting with posts, right? So in this scenario, there comes the load balancing, because you have when you're testing with 1 million users, this will help. I mean, this scenario will help to ensure the load balancing across servers to maintain the responsiveness during peak usage times, right? So that is in terms of social media platform. And when it comes to e-commerce websites, nowadays, every one of us, at least in on daily basis, we do some ordering through e-commerce, right? Online platforms. So, for example, when you are in a flash sale, and some the e-commerce platforms might experience massive spike in traffic during flash sales like Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Amazon Festival or whatever it is. So during those days, I mean, the main process is to like the order processing part when it comes to that part. So we are going to test with a million users to ensure smooth order processing is happening, or how does the checkout flows work, and how does the inventory management has been handled during high demand periods. So this is in terms of e-commerce websites. And then when we move to the video streaming services, We all watch, even in this video you're watching on YouTube, and we have Amazon Prime, or we have Netflix, or we have Hotstar, we have Disney, we have uh, whatever you say. Like, we have millions of, like, sorry, nearly more than hundreds of options for the video streaming services. So those platforms offer live streaming of events, in fact, like the sports, the IPL, our favorite IPL. So just comment your favorite IPL team in the comment section, so we all know that. Okay. And your favorite football team if you're a football fan, and your hockey team if you're a hockey fan. So we do offer, I mean, the platforms do offer live streaming of events, the sports, the concerts, the conferences, which are needed to handle a surge of concurrent viewers. And when it comes to the video streaming service, the testing is completely different, uh, rather than the first two scenarios. Like, in this scenario where we do test the 1 million user testing for the video quality, so we have to test the video quality, which should remain high with a large number of simultaneous users. So we used to see the matches in mobile in our office, or we used to see the matches while we were driving, or uh, in the home we used to watch. So there are like lot of options, right? So to handle a large number of simultaneous users, but still we should not compensate, or we should not compromise on the video quality. So that's where, when it comes to the video streaming services. And next part is the online gaming. So every one of us uh, were a fan of some online games. So games like Fortnite, or World of Warcraft, or Apex Legends. So all these needs to support millions of users who are online playing concurrently, right? And when it comes to the online gaming, the main objective is to test the server stability, where we have to test with 1 million users to ensure we have the server stability and responsiveness during intense gaming sessions. And then the financial services, obviously, we all nowadays use all the banking using our mobiles. Any bank you have, you say we have their app, and we do all the financial transactions. We do UPI transactions. We just transfer money in a minutes of seconds, and we do everything through the financial services. So financial trading platforms must handle a huge number of concurrent users during market fluctuations. And the main objective of doing 1 million users in the banking, in the financial services, is the transaction. So the bank and the payment gateways need to process a large volume of transactions without delays or errors. Will you accept if there is any delays, or will you accept if there are any errors? Like, if you're transferring your friend 50,000 of money, and it's just going just 5,000 of money, will you accept it? So that should not happen in any case. So that is why we should do a 1 million users testing in the financial transactions, financial services especially. So, and then the next part, the sixth part, is the messaging and the communication application. So we all now use WhatsApp, WeChat, or Slack, which needs to support millions of users sending messages and media. I mean, like, we all are on WhatsApp. Even we have a separate group on Little Sly YouTube channel, where I post all my videos there, and in fact, people were asking like questions there. So we all keep on interacting, right? We all just keep on sending messages, receiving messages. So we must make sure that whether the application, the instant messaging apps, handle uh, the millions of users who are like sending messages and media. In fact, not only messages, we are like sending memes, we are sending uh, video clips, we are sending any sort of media, like documents, files, audio, images, everything, right? So when it comes to the messaging and the communication apps, the objective of testing 1 million users is the real time communication, because when we were testing, we have to ensure that we have smooth voice and video calls with a large number of participants. Yes, nowadays we have video call over the WhatsApp, right? So when we are doing a video call, it should not interrupt, or it should not disturb the other users as well, because you were one of the 1 million user who is using the system concurrently at the same period of time. So all these points should be like, should be part of your testing objectives. And at the end of the test, you have to ensure that the smooth voice and video calls with a large number of participants is working fine. And then the next part is the cloud services and hosting providers. So the infrastructure cloud, basically the cloud services such as AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, they need to validate their infrastructure's capacity to handle a massive load, because scaling is the objective here, because testing these cloud services will help to ensure auto scaling mechanisms, whether they are working effectively to accommodate sudden increases in demand. So that is the reason we have to test the cloud services and hosting providers, because basically all our applications nowadays run either on AWS or on Azure or on Google Cloud, and no applications, like I would say, like very less percent of applications are on premises. So that is as well a very important objective that has to be tested, the scaling part when it comes to the cloud, the infrastructure cloud. And then comes the health care systems. So when it comes to healthcare systems, when you are trying to book an appointment, or while you are trying to schedule an appointment, the healthcare portal needs to handle a large number of users who are booking their appointments and accessing the medical records. Take for example, like if you are in UK, you must have known about the NHS, the National Health Service, which is the government running uh, healthcare system. So which is actually handle millions and millions of data, millions and millions of appointments every single minute, and that, like, doing like a testing for that application with the rise of telemedicine. Actually, the platforms must support numerous users who are connecting for any virtual consultations, right? So every industry or everything, in fact, all these industries that we were discussing so far is being part of your daily life. So the million user testing is definitely required for every application that you're using. And in fact, we have two more applications as well, like two more industries, which is the educational platform. So you must have used the Coursera, or you must have used the Udemy, or the even our Little Star YouTube channel. But apart from that, yeah, you have lots and lots of online learning educational platforms, which needs a large number of students who are accessing the courses simultaneously. They have like the lab sessions, they have the materials to watch, they have the quiz to take. So everything has to be available without any delays or without any interruptions or without any errors. So the live classes, basically, the testing should ensure that live classes with interactive features run smoothly for all participants. So that is another quick and important thing. And then finally, the government services. Take for example, if you are somewhere in India, so you must be doing your tax filing before the end of April or May or June. So during those tax season, government websites need to handle millions of users who are filing their returns, right? And then when it comes to elections, the voter registration and election result websites need to withstand heavy traffic during elections. So everything that we discussed so far is part and parcel of your daily day-to-day life. So as I told you, the million user testing is definitely part of your everyday life, and this is possible. So that's what we're going to see now. And when it comes to the benefits of testing, so what are the benefits of testing with 1 million users? So far, we have discussed like 10 different industries, 10 different lifelines, line of business in your life. So, what is the benefit? Why should I do it? So, that's the important question, right? So, okay, I'm doing the testing. So, what is the benefit I'm going to get out of it? So, the first thing is identifying the bottlenecks. So, testing at this scale will help you identify the performance bottlenecks, which ensure the application can handle the expected load. And then the second benefit is the scalability testing. So, you have to ensure the system can scale horizontally, which is adding more servers, or vertically, which is by upgrading the hardware as needed, right? And then the user experience. So, you have to ensure a seamless user experience with fast response times and minimal downtime, which is crucial for user retention. And the final benefit is to do the stress testing, which validates the system's ability under extreme load conditions, which prevent the crashes or failures during peak usage. So let's now move on to the main part. So we are going to handle this situation using a master and slave. and the tool we are going to use is through JMeter. So let me take you through the master machine first. So firstly, let's start with the CPU. So you have to have a modern multi-core CPU. And why is that? Because the master machine is responsible for orchestrating the test, and a modern multi-core CPU, such as a quad-core or a higher, is beneficial because it can handle multiple threads and process simultaneously. And in this example, we are going to use one master with 10 slaves, right? So firstly, we'll see about the master part now. And when coming to the CPU, so we this the modern multi-core CPU will handle the thread management, because JMeter's thread management, the test plan execution, and the result aggregation will benefit from a CPU with multiple cores. And when it comes to the CPU, the responsiveness is the highlight part, because with the multi-core CPU, the master can respond more efficiently to changes in the test plan, so that he can start or stop commands and for any real-time monitoring. So that is the first part when it comes to the CPU in terms of the uh, master machine. Okay, so now I think I can move to the RAM. So far I believe you would have understand everything which I have told you. In case if you have any doubts, please don't hesitate to stop and go back and listen everything, and then slowly come back. And if you have any questions until this part, please do comment in the comment section. I'll definitely take you those questions, and will answer you in the next video. Okay, and let's now move to the next part, which is the RAM. So at least 8 GB of RAM is required, because all these the JMeter activities which are going to do is memory intensive, especially for larger test plans like this with 1 million users, and it will involve the samplers, it will definitely involve the listeners and the test data. And in fact, this process will be like by having like sufficient RAM, it will help us to avoid excessive swapping to disk, which can slow down the test execution. And then the listener. So if you're using listeners like the graph results, sorry, they consume memory to store and display results. So more RAM allows for smoother operation, especially with listeners enabled, right? Well, mostly we'll be doing anyways with the in the non-GUI mode, but still, if you have a better RAM, like at least I told you, like up to 8 GB of RAM, it will be very helpful to grab those results, because at the end of the day, you are running a huge test, so you have to have all those data, and you must not like missing some data, and you should not request like, okay, let me do another test. No, that's not possible in any case, because when you're running a 1 million user test, like every team is like coordinating with you, and they will it's quite difficult for them to give you back at the same time. So just make sure that you have everything, and you have set up both the hardware, the software, the all the required tools and everything, right? Okay. Let's now move on to the next part, the storage SSD. So SSD for faster disk I/O. So nowadays we have SSD in every single machine. So SSD is what I would prefer. And why is that? Because if you are saving your test results locally on the master machine, the SSDs offer faster write speeds compared to the traditional HDDs. Yes, the one which is rotating in your old laptops. No more it's rendered, so it's always the SSDs. And in fact, we have much more advanced hard disks as well nowadays in the market. So I would prefer the latest, the super fast SSDs. And then the JMeter generates logs during the test execution, right? We all know all the logs. So SSDs can handle the logs which are written more efficiently, especially in high load scenarios. And then when it comes to the test plan loading, so SSDs provide faster read speeds, which is beneficial for the loading large test plans and for resources into memory. And then finally, the temporary files. So JMeter can create temporary files during tests, and these SSDs can handle these operations more efficiently, which will improve overall performance. And then the network. So far we saw about the CPU. Yes, that's check. And then the RAM. Yes, so I told we need at least 8 GB of RAM. So if you have a 16 GB of RAM, it's you're always welcome to have it in your master machine. If you have a 32 or 64, you are always very welcome to do this testing. And then the next part is the storage. So as I told you, you can have your SSD or anything which is in the latest technology in terms of the storage. And then the network. So we all expect a high speed network connection. So why is that? So to communicate with the slave. So the master communicates with the slave machines to distribute the load, and a high speed network will ensure a minimal latency between the master and slaves. Yes, because we always communicate with the slave for every single transaction from the master to the slave. So this is always required to ensure a minimal latency and the data exchange. So during the test, there is a constant data exchange between the master and slaves. So a high speed network will reduce any delays and bottlenecks in this communication, because you are anyways going to find the bottlenecks in the application, but because that should not be a case. It's been raised because of the low speed network connection. So you have to always have a high speed network connection between your master and your slave, and then the retrieval of the results. So if collecting results from distributed slaves, a fast network speeds up the retrieval process, right? So when you are collecting your results, and it will allow for you for a quicker analysis. So that's the reason we need a high speed network connection. So let me give you a quick example of this use case for in terms of the master. So for a test with 1 million users, the master needs to be efficiently managing the distribution of load profiles, their requests and the data, and a modern multi-core CPU which ensures the master can handle the complexity of the test plan. So as I told you, an 8 GB of RAM will provide sufficient memory for JMeter's operation, especially when collecting and processing results, and a SSD which will accelerate the result saving and retrieval during the criticality for large scale sets with extensive data. And a high speed network minimizes the delays in communication between master and slaves, which will optimize for the test execution. And for complex scenarios, so when you are testing with intricate logic or with dynamic data or with heavy listeners benefit from a powerful master machine, and multi-core CPUs manage thread groups and controllers efficiently, which will maintain the test flow and logic. And the ample RAM will avoid bottlenecks when handling large number of virtual users and extensive test plans. The SSDs are the main role playing the main role here. So the SSDs speed up loading of complex test plans and temporary file operations during execution. And finally, the high speed networks will ensure responsive communication, which are crucial for complex scenario with multiple slaves. So by ensuring a well configured master machine with these specifications, you can create a solid foundation for conducting large scale, complex and high performance load test using JMeter. So now let's move on to the slave machine. That's very important in this scenario. So the number of slaves. Firstly, the concurrent the okay. Anyways, you're going to, as I told you, you're going to use, like in this case, you're going to use what, one master and 10 slaves. So the first part is the concurrency and workload. So the number of slave machines will depend on the desired concurrency, meaning how many virtual users you want to simulate. So each will simulate a portion of the total users. So the total number of slaves should be enough to handle the desired. Or for example, if you want to simulate 1 million users and each slave can handle 10,000 users, so you would need 100 slave machines, right? So you need 100 slave machines through which you can handle 1 million users, which is 100 times 10,000 users. Anyways, it's going to be a very big number, but still, as I told you, we are going to do this when I'm reaching 1 million users subscribers. Okay. So now moving on to the CPU of the slave machine. So multi-core CPUs, again the same scenario. So similar to the master machine, the slave machines will benefit from multi-core CPUs, and multi-core CPUs enable each slave to handle multiple threads and processes concurrently, which will enhance the performance. And quad-core or higher CPU are recommended to efficiently execute the test plan and handle the load. So we saw about the CPU, and then the same case we discussed for the master. It's the RAM now. So the memory allocation. So each slave should have sufficient RAM to handle the complexity of the test plan and the number of users it is simulating. So at least 8 GB of RAM per slave is a good starting point, but this can vary based on the test plan's complexity, and more RAM may be necessary if the test plan includes heavy listeners, large data sets, or extensive samplers. And then when it comes to the storage SSD, so the SSD benefits, so because the SSDs are preferred for the slave machine due to their faster read write speeds, which are crucial for handling input output operations during test execution. And JMeter may generate temporary files, it will store test results, and it will read configuration files, because SSDs can handle these operations more efficiently. And using SSDs will reduce the risk of input output bottlenecks, which can affect test performance, especially when dealing with large scale sets. And then when it comes to the network, again the same case, like the CPU, the RAM, the SSDs, and finally the network. So when it comes to the networks, you must have a high speed connection. So the slave machines must have high speed network connections, especially in distributed testing scenarios, because high speed networks minimize latency and ensure efficient communication between the master and slaves. And this high speed connection is crucial because when the slaves are distributed across different physical locations or cloud instances, you should have efficient network connections which will prevent delays in distributing tasks, which will sync the test execution and collecting the results. So again, a quick summary of it. So uh, you're going to do it for a large scale e-commerce platform. So I'm going to explain you a use case example for the slave mission. So for an e-commerce platform, so you're testing with 1 million users. So the slave missions would need to handle a portion of this load. So a setup might include, yes, the same 100 slave missions, each with a quad-core CPU with 8 GB RAM, SSD storage, and a high-speed network connections. So each slave will efficiently simulate user behavior, add load to the system, and communicates results back to the master for analysis. And then when it comes to the social media platform, so a social media platform which is testing for massive user engagement might use distributed testing with 200 slave machines, because these machines would need, again, would need a quad core CPU, 8 GB RAM or more, and SSD for efficient input output and for fast network connections. And if you are testing for a video streaming service for 1 million concurrent users will employ 50 slave machines, right? Because you have to test uh, the video quality, the viewers' interactions, and the server responsiveness, right? So I think so far I have discussed all these scenarios, like why do we need a very good CPU, a better RAM, or a better network connection. So I think I've discussed every single aspect of it. Okay, so let's now move on to the final part, which is the additional considerations, right? So, what are the additional considerations apart from your RAM, your CPU, your SSD, your network? Okay. So, when it comes to the additional considerations, we are going to talk about the network bandwidth. So, the network capacity. So, that's the very first thing. So, we have to ensure the network infrastructure between the master and the slave machines can handle the load which is generated during the test, and a gigabit, which is like almost like 1 gigabit per second or higher, is recommended for efficient data transfer between the master and slave. And you have to have a high bandwidth, sorry, which reduces latency and which it should ensure a timely communication, which is crucial for distributed testing. And when it comes to the bandwidth planning, so you have to calculate the required bandwidth, which is based on the volume of data exchanged between master and slaves. And each slave should send request data and receive response. So the total bandwidth should accommodate this traffic, right? So that's all about the network bandwidth. And when it comes to the firewall and security, why are we talking about the firewall? What exactly is it doing between the master and slave? Yes, firewall again plays a crucial role because configuring the firewall will allow communication between the master and the slave machines, and it will ensure the necessary ports are open for JMeter to send test requests and receive responses. And if the master and slaves are in different networks, we have to configure the firewalls to allow traffic between them. And then this firewall and security, yes, we have to talk about the security. So we have to implement secure communication protocols such as SSH if the test environment requires secure data transmission. And also we have to ensure that security policies do not interfere with the test execution, especially if firewalls have strict rules. And when it comes to the JMeter configuration, yeah, so far we saw about the firewall security, we saw about the network bandwidth, but what about the JMeter configuration? Yes, JMeter has some set of properties and system properties. So these configuration files will hold essential settings for JMeter's behavior and resource allocation. So we have to adjust the heap size, which is the minus XMX configuration in your config file, which will determine the maximum memory JMeter can use. So we have to set it based on the available RAM on the master and slave. And when it comes to the timeout, so we have to configure http.socket.timeout and we have to configure http.connection.timeout to match your application's expected response times. And when it comes to the number of threads, we have to adjust the number of threads and the ramp up time in the thread group based on the desired load profiles. In this case, you're going to run 1 million user load. And then when it comes to the plugins and extensions, we have to consider using JMeter plugins or extensions for specific functionalities like distributed testing or custom samplers. And also we can use the plugins which will enhance the JMeter's capabilities and make test development and execution more efficient. And then when it comes to the monitoring part, we have to do the resource monitoring, right? As at the end of the test, what are we going to observe? So the resource monitoring, especially, so we have to use monitoring tools to track the performance of all the missions which are involved. We should not like avoid the master and slave. So every mission, every single mission, the master and the slave should be monitored during the test using the monitoring tools and monitoring the CPU usage, the RAM utilization, the disk input output, and the network traffic to ensure none of the resources are overwhelmed. Right. So that's another very critical point which we have to note it down. And then when it comes to the real-time monitoring, we have to identify the bottlenecks and the issues during the test execution. And also we have the JMeter listeners. So we have to be very cautious with the JMeter listeners like the view results tree as they consume resources. So we have to avoid them using during the load test. So we can remove it because as I told you, it will like consume a lot of resources. And if you're using listeners, you have to limit the data they collect or you have to consider disabling them during the peak load phase of the test. So this is again one of the best practices which I have discussed in one of our previous videos. And then the cloud services. So when it comes to the cloud services, you can do the scalability with the cloud. So cloud platforms like AWS, the Azure, the Google Cloud offers scalability for load testing. So you have to spin up the instances as needed for master and slave missions, which are paying for resources only during testing. And these cloud services will provide flexibility in scaling up or down based on the test requirements, which will reduce infrastructure cost. So what's the benefit of doing this? So the cloud services will offer machine configurations which will make it easy to match the required specification for master and slaves. And then the geographic distribution. So cloud providers have data centers worldwide, enabling distributed testing across regions for realistic scenarios, and on-demand resource availability will spin up instances quickly when needed and ensuring no delay in setup. Okay, so let's now see the testing approach. So you have did all these part. You should stay patient, you should stay calm, and you should start very small. So you have to begin your testing with a smaller load to ensure the setup is working correctly. So something like a smoke test. So you have to verify that the communication between the master and the slave is smooth and each components behave as expected. The next part is you have to run initial test with a limited number of users to validate the configuration before scaling up to 1 million users. And then the last part is the iterative testing. So you have to iterate on the test plan and the configurations based on initial results. You have to gradually increase the load by adding more users and observing the system behavior. And you have to use the feedback from each iteration to refine the test plan, adjust configurations, and improve performance. So, with that, I come to an end. I think this is a very, very, very informative video. I have discussed every single possible opportunity for the 1 million user test, and it's going to be one master and 100 slaves. And as I am again promising you, so once I reach 1 million users, I will do this in real, in practical for you. I'll do a 1 million user test and show you how to do that. So, thanks again, everyone, for hearing until this part. So, thanks again for watching this video. Thanks again for hearing this video. And until I meet you in another interesting video, it's bye bye from Masan Shanmugam and yes, your favorite little slaw. Bye.